There are four primary differences between an unborn and a born human being. But as it turns out, none of these four kinds of differences are morally relevant. In other words, none of these four differences justifies disqualifying the unborn from being a valuable human being. And so you can remember these four differences with the acronym SLED, S-L-E-D, and they stand for size, level of development, environment, and degree of dependency. These are the only four ways that the unborn differs from a newborn or a born human being. But as I'm going to show you in just a second here, none of these differences are relevant to the question of value. So take the first one, for example, S, which stands for size. Sure, the unborn is smaller than a born human being, but why does size somehow give a person rights as a human being or make them valuable? Clearly it doesn't. I mean, my 6-year-old daughter is certainly smaller than me, but that doesn't make her less of a human being or less valuable than me simply because she's smaller. Therefore, size cannot be justification for disqualifying the unborn. The second difference is the L in SLED, which stands for level of development. And certainly it's true that the unborn is less developed than a born human being. But why does being less developed somehow disqualify you from being a valuable human being? Again, my daughter, who is 6, is less developed than, say, a 16-year-old girl. A 16-year-old girl has her reproductive organs fully developed, whereas my 6-year-old daughter does not. Does the fact that my daughter is less developed than a 16-year-old girl somehow disqualify her from being a valuable human being or give her less value? Clearly it doesn't. So therefore we can't disqualify the unborn for having that same kind of a difference. Now the E in SLED stands for environment, and certainly the unborn is in a different location than the born human being. But clearly where one is has no bearing on who one is. And so just because you might be swimming underwater or floating out in space, it doesn't in any way affect your value as a human being in the same way it can't affect your value if you just happen to be in the location of the womb. You know, how would a 6-inch journey from inside the uterus to outside of it somehow magically transform you from a non-valuable human being to a valuable human being? And then finally, the D in SLED stands for degree of dependency. And yes, it's true, the unborn is more dependent upon its mother for nutrition and sustenance and protection. But why does being dependent upon somebody else somehow disqualify you from being valuable? I mean, you might find a child who is drowning in a swimming pool and you're the only one there to save that child, and that might make the child's life dependent upon you for their survival, but that wouldn't somehow change their value as a human being. And so you can give all kinds of other examples, but you can see these are the only four ways that the unborn differs from a newborn: size, level of development, environment, and degree of dependency. And you can remember them with the acronym SLED. But as I've shown, none of these four differences justifies disqualifying the unborn from being a valuable human being.